Do real estate sales slow down during the Iowa State Fair? I did some analysis this last week. I think you'll be interested in what I found. So let's take a look. Hey there, Les Sulgrove with Simply Des Moines Market Values. This is week 33, 2024. It is the last day of the Iowa State Fair, and I'm going to try to answer the question, do real estate sales slow down during the Iowa State Fair? I think you'll be interested in what I found. I did some additional research and created a couple of new graphics for you here. So before we jump in, wanted to say thank you again for tuning in, as always. And if you enjoy the content that I provide and you find it valuable, please hit that share button. Also, subscribe and hit the notification bell. That will alert you every time a new show pops up, which is usually around Sunday afternoon or Sunday evenings when they come out. So I do appreciate your support. It helps my channel grow and it helps me create more videos for you each week. So with that, let's get started here. This is the graphic that shows you the number of homes for sale year over year. That's the year over year part is that little dash line. That's last year's number. And then it's also by week. So you can see as of week 33, we have just under 3,560 homes for sale. And that's almost 600 homes more on the market than we had a year ago at this same time. And as frequent visitors, you also know that when I talk about inventory increasing, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have had more homes come on the market. Sometimes it has to do with the pace of sales. But I think there's some good news here this week, and let's take a look at that here. This is the list of the homes listed by week. So the last one was the cumulative count of homes for sale. This is the count of the new homes that were added to the inventory each week. And this past week, we surpassed last year's home inventory additions to the market by about 43 homes. We had 250 homes added a year ago at this time, and we're 293 this time, and that's an increase over year. And that's been kind of the pace we've seen here. We've seen some weeks where we've had a slowdown. 4th of July, for example, is one of those weeks where things kind of slowed down a little bit, and just we will occasionally see a drop over year, but for the most part, we have been putting more homes into the market than we have been taking off, and that's a good sign here. So um, the new graphic that I created this week, and this was some research done basically looking 11 days prior to the Iowa State Fair, 11 days of the Iowa State Fair, and 11 days after the Iowa State Fair. And this is what the graphics kind of looks like. It goes back all the way to 2017 is when I started this. So the dark green column there is that 11 days prior. The green column in the middle is the 11 days of the fair, and then the light green is the 11 days after the fair. So you'll notice over here on 2024, I don't have the 11 days after. I'll come back in 2 weeks and we'll update this show graphic for you as well. And we'll see if that actually increased. I just didn't want to hold this information for 2 more weeks because I'm getting a lot of agents calling and saying, is the fair affecting business this year? So if you go back and you really look over time in 2017 to 2018, 19, and 20, uh, even all the way up until last year, it's pretty marked difference where you see that the week of the fair, those 11 days, we call it a week, but it's 11 days of the fair. Actually, we do see fewer homes coming onto the market during that period of time, and it's a marked difference, especially earlier in prior to 2020, it was a pretty good difference there. So I think the idea was that homeowners were sitting back going, we're going to put our home on the market, but you know what? The Iowa State Fair is coming up. Let's either get it on before the fair or let's wait till after the fair and put it on. And so that week during the Iowa State Fair is probably not a real popular time to be putting homes on the market. It's always a good time to put them on, but maybe it's not the most popular time. So if you're a home buyer out there, if past history shows anything and you haven't seen anything come up for a week or two, that's because the Iowa State Fair has been happening. And watch next week because I'll bet you we'll see another round of new listings hitting the market, and we should push our inventory up even higher than that almost 3,600 count that we're seeing right now. So One point that I do want to point out as well is this really always the case because of the fair? Because in 2020, obviously, we did not have the Iowa State Fair. It was canceled due to COVID. They had a virtual fair, but really nothing that would have affected business. I think that the mindset of most people are that, hey, during the Iowa State Fair, during that time, the month of August, that's usually the time they kind of plan to take vacations, whether the Iowa State Fair was the vacation, or in that case, where there was alternative vacations taken. Maybe it was just getting away for a week, or just kicking back for that 10 or 11 days or so. We still saw that drop in new listings taken during that year, but I don't think that we can credit the Iowa State Fair for that drop in 2020. Um, so another area I started to look at to kind of figure out, does the Iowa State Fair affect businesses? Going back and looking at showing activity for the Des Moines Area Association of Realtors. This is a showing time service that basically allows agents to schedule their showings through an online app. And the benefit of using this is they give us some analytics from that. The orange line that you kind of see right here, that is 2024, and that's the weekly average. And whenever you see this big dip, that's usually something that typically happens. Well, obviously, that's the 4th of July weekend, so there were fewer showings that week. And I'm going to zoom in here, or at least enlarge, I should say, enlarge this area right here. You can kind of see that during the fair last year, activity kind of slowed down, more so than the previous years. But this year, we hadn't seen quite that drop. So, I mean, while it's downward just a little bit, it's nothing dramatic like we saw in 2023. So maybe that's a sign here that that the activity is up a little bit, and that's a good sign. So let's kind of take a look at how that maybe affects pending sales and offers accepted. So the flip side of actives are pendings. And just like I showed you the very first slide, this is the week over week pending sale count, the number of homes that are in the sale pending process, cumulative. So there's currently 1,920 homes currently under contract waiting to close as of the end of this week, and that's down a little bit from last year, and that's the trend we've seen. You can just tell we've been running behind the sale pace of 2023 all year for the most part. There was a period of time, about 4 or 5 weeks there in the spring, that it looked like we were going to maybe catch back up and surpass, but we never really did catch up. And as far as looking at this a little differently, again, just like we did in active sales, let's take a look at the homes pended by week. In other words, the number of homes that went under contract by week, as opposed to the cumulative. This is how many homes during that last 7 days actually went under contract. And you can see that, you know, again, we'll see this in the state fair version, but you can see this last week in particular, where the Iowa State Fair was in full swing. We actually saw, just like we saw in previous years, we saw a dip in sale pending stats. Now, the good news is that we've been falling behind, by a pretty good measure each week prior to this, although there's a couple of weeks that we kind of hit the last year's numbers. But the last week and the week prior, we were actually pretty darn close to last year. So if we're going to start to maintain what we did in last year's sale pendings, we could expect to see a jump here this coming week. And I think we'll see that actually, because if we see more homes coming onto the market like we saw, that's going to spur quite a few offers. So if you're a home buyer out there, get your shoes tied, because you're probably going to be out there competing against a few more buyers in the next couple of weeks. So before we get into the state fair graphic, let's also take a look at maybe what mortgage interest rates are doing, because mortgage interest rates are definitely an area that we want to look at to see if that's a factor in the state fair business. And obviously, we saw that large reduction of large and welcome reduction by over 0.5% or by close to 0.5% 2 weeks ago. It actually trickled back up just 0.2%, so it was, or 0.02%, so it's up to 6.49, where last week it was at 6.42. 1.47. So in all actuality, it was about the same this week. But that's still a great rate. That if we could see this continue to trend down over time, that'll be a great thing. But as far as Iowa State Fair business, we'll take a look and see if that maybe correlates to any additional sale pendings here. So without further ado, here is that state fair graphic with the sale pending, and it's got a lot of information on it. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this box because we already know that's the Iowa State Fair time period there for 2020. But what this graphic shows you is just like in the for sale graphic, this one shows you the 11 days prior, the 11 days current of the Iowa State Fair while it's in session, and then the 11 days post, which of course we're not going to see those post graphic here for 2024 for another 2 weeks. And I'll bring this one back as well. But you also notice I've added a new layer to this one as well. It's the temperature displayed over each of those 11-day periods. So it's the average temperature. It took a little bit of research to find this, but I went to Iowa State University's website and found the actual high temperature ratings, which I thought was a little more accurate than trying to go to weather.com or Wonderground and trying to figure out what their system was. So I was able to get a nice downloadable spreadsheet of the highs for each of those weeks, and then I averaged out the period of time over the 11 days prior and 11 days after and during. So what you see down here at the bottom, and we'll focus on this for just a second, is most years we tend to always see the Iowa State Fair temperatures being in that 80s, and that's just a no-brainer. It's August. There are days that it's closer to 100, and there are days it's less than 100, but the 11-day average for each of these periods here was in the 80s. And if you come over here last year, it was a warmer fair than previous years, although 2022, we saw that first week prior to the fair almost 90 degrees. And we kind of saw that again here this year. We remember before the fair how hot it was, and then the weather just broke. In fact, this is by far probably, I'm just looking down through there. Yeah, this is the lowest 11-day average temperature for the Iowa State Fair, at least since 2017. So we were seeing beautiful weather as far as temperature goes. That also tended to bring some rain. We did have a couple of days of pretty heavy rain. But anyway, the important part here was that the weather really played well for us. However, on that flip side, you're looking at sale pendings here. We'll start over here just the week of the fair. Wasn't too far off of the week before and after, not too far off, all the way down. In fact, 2023 was pretty much right even. But look what happened this year. We saw sale pendings drop dramatically. And I don't know, I'm going to give a lot of credit to the weather. I mean, honestly, more people were probably at the fair. We were there a week ago Friday, 110,000 people there, and you didn't really walk at the Iowa State Fair. You kind of shuffled when you got into the crowds. You really didn't have that much ability to stretch out. So I think the Iowa State Fair saw a benefit of traffic, and I think that to that traffic benefit, we tended to see a little bit of a downturn in the number of homes going under contract. We were down by, from a year ago, 84 homes that went under contract. So we'll see if that's really the factor or not. Layering also over the mortgage interest rates. Now, remember, I looked at mortgage interest rates. I watched those frequently as well, and I went down and I averaged the mortgage interest rate during the Iowa State Fair period. And this is now overlaid. So in 2017, the average interest rate for that time period was 3.9%, 4.5% just over. And then we get over here to 2021 and 2022 when the rates really started to rise. 2021, of course, we were in the full throngs of COVID-19. Sales were up in 2020 and 2021. Mortgage interest rates really started to rise in 22 and 2023, whereas a year ago we were at 7%, just over 7%. And I think that had something to do with, obviously, with state fair traffic, and the weather was decent, I guess, last year. But I think that mortgage interest rates also had somewhat of an effect on home buying activity. I really don't know if I would claim that again for this year. I mean, interest rates are down. There's a lot of activity, a lot of buyers out looking a week ago. I think if rates stay down in this 6.5% range and they actually drop a little bit more, I think that's just going to catapult us into some uh, a really good way for additional sales activities as we move into the 11 days past the Iowa State Fair and to the end, which would take us through the end of August. So it'll be just interesting to watch that as we go. So the big question again this week was, do real estate sales slow down during the Iowa State Fair? I'm going to say that my answer to that is yes, to some extent. New listings were affected more than pendings. Um, I think that weather had a lot to do with that. And I'm not so sure that mortgage rates affected the state fair as much. If interest rates were affecting the state fair business, then we would have seen maybe some more sales in there. So this will be kind of the benchmark we look at now moving forward. Because we are completely out of COVID, interest rates have peaked. At least I hope that they don't go back up. And as we move forward into 2025, we'll look back again at this information again next year and see if we can follow along that same path. So, all right, well, that's the show. I do appreciate you joining me every week. Thank you again. Be sure to go to DesMoinesMarketValues.com. That's where all the show graphics are stored in the weekly videos. And any questions you may have, please send me an email at statguy@DesMoinesMarketValues.com or give me a holler or a text at 515-202-8954. I will do my very best to answer those in a timely fashion. And many of the show's topics come from those calls. So next week we'll come back and kind of do a recap of kind of where we are with activity in the different categories and see what maybe news is coming out of the market stats that we are seeing due to either the low interest rates or the increase in pending sales that we're expecting. So again, thanks a lot again for joining me. This is Les Sulgrove with Simply Des Moines, and be safe and have fun out there next week.